welcome back to another Insider. And today we are going to talk about something that is very important and that I have been advocated for some time. As obviously someone who works with the Portuguese language is one of my working tools. I'm a native speaker as well. I have been advocating for the Portuguese language and against what the Portuguese government has been doing to the Portuguese language. And by no means, this is all the Portuguese government's fault. I don't blame any other countries for that. And today, I am going to talk about something that it's been doing the rounds around social media and may confuse a few non-speakers, which is in regards to the Portuguese Language Day. So there's been a little bit of a confusion, and today I'm going to clarify things a little. So come with me, let's talk about the Portuguese language. So, as I was saying, there's been a bit of a confusion created by a few posts on social media claiming that 5th of May is the International Portuguese Language Day. So, let's clarify a little bit of things for you. I'm going to put you in perspective. I'm going to tell you a little bit of history, not only Portuguese history, but the language's history itself and why the two things are linked. And then I am going to say why this is obviously nonsense and doesn't make any sense, and why I'm against this new so-called celebration. So, the Portuguese language is celebrated on the 10th of June. So, just this week. On the 10th of June, we celebrate Portugal, Camões, and the Portuguese language. So that's the national day, and we also celebrate the language and Camões. Why Camões and the language being celebrated on the day we celebrate the country? Well, the answer is very simple. Luís de Camões is one of the country's greatest poets. The day itself marks the anniversary of the poet's death in 1580. He was in a battle in North Africa and he passed away. He was the author of the epic Lusíads, that if you are a Portuguese citizen and if you grow up in Portugal, you learn throughout all your high school years. And it tells you the story of Vasco da Gama and the Portuguese discoveries. Is the symbol of Portugal and its language, so much so we sometimes refer to the Portuguese language as Língua de Camões, language of Camões, because it's like it's almost it's not almost it is that Camões is one of the symbols of the language itself. This is a very important date, and it has been celebrated for centuries. And we celebrate it not only the country, but its language as a very important symbol of the country and the communities that have adopted it and make it their own. So for centuries, everyone celebrated the Language Day on that day. Of course, other countries are not going to celebrate the Portugal Day, because if you are talking, for example, Brazil or Angola or Mozambique, they are not going to obviously celebrate Portugal because they're not Portuguese. That makes perfect sense. But the language has always been celebrated like that. So it is important. This is the real Portuguese Language Day. Don't get confused by posts on Facebook telling you otherwise. Now, let's see what this is about. After the Portuguese government signing that so-called orthographic agreement, they had to continue their path of destruction towards the Portuguese language, the Portuguese culture, its symbolism to the Portuguese nation. Well, it's been a roller coaster of damage, quite frankly. It has not done one single positive thing for the language. They claim it would unify the language, which per se it's ridiculous, but it didn't. It didn't. Uh, it did not make it easier for anyone. And quite frankly, it's not a question like some like to put that it's a question of Portugal against Brazil. It is not. It is not. There is plenty of Brazilian nationals, Brazilian linguists that are against it because, of course, they are intelligent people and they see the wrong that he has been doing. Of course, Portugal and Brazil speak the same language. It is true. It came from the same core, but Brazil evolved in a different way. And today, their variant is very rich, but represents Brazilian culture, represents Brazil. The same happened in Angola, the same happened in Mozambique, the same happened in Cape Verde, and all other CPLP countries, all Portuguese-speaking countries. And we should respect that. We should respect that diversity, just like other languages do, just like English. For example, French, Spanish, that have other variants, and they respect that. I think this is what the problem is, the disrespect towards Portugal and towards its language, the language that is spoken in Portugal, the main language. So, this is something that after that pathetic agreement, the CPLP, so in 2009, the CPLP, the Community of Portuguese-Speaking Countries, cooked up a celebration of the Portuguese language they call World Portuguese Language Day. It was then recognized by UNESCO in 2019. Well, with all respect, this is not the Portuguese Language Day at all. At all. Why the 5th of May? What's the symbolism of that day? Please explain. We don't know. The Portuguese language is already celebrated on the 10th of June. The real Portuguese language, the language that Camões spoke. Yes, it is not spoken the same way he did. It's quite obvious that it wouldn't be possible. It changed, and we accept and embrace it. But those changes were made with sense. They made sense. They were done according to the evolution of the language, just as it happened in all the other CPLP countries that, of course, brought their cultures in, brought all their influences in, and the language, of course, in those countries in particular, had a different change and evolved differently from what it happened in Portugal. It's natural, just like English evolved differently in Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, United States, and all other countries that speak the language. It's a natural occurrence, is how it happened, and we should embrace that. So this is what happened. So the language, as I said, it changed and we embraced it because that reflected the evolution throughout the years and the culture of those who spoke it. Simple. Simple. What we have now is a vandalized language that has been disrespected, mutilated, and neglected by those who were voted in to protect it. And this is shameful. Shameful. It's a disgrace. And it needs to stop, quite frankly. So, why it is so important defending the language as a cultural symbol? Well, I for one believe that in a world where diversity and inclusion seem to be a priority, Portugal was not included, nor the diversity of its language. It hasn't, quite frankly. So, if we accept other cultures, if we accept diversity, and we do, but then we completely obliterated one country and want to unify a language and force everyone to do the same thing, even though it really doesn't represent their culture, it really doesn't represent their country, it really doesn't represent who they are, where is the inclusion? Where is the diversity? It's ridiculous. The Portuguese language is spoken in 9 countries. Each one of them has its own culture, a culture that made a mark in the language, like cultures do, like countries do, and it's natural. It's natural. So it is ridiculous to unify them. Ridiculous. Because you are simply depleting those countries of their own identities. And that's I'm not talking rocket science here. This is common sense. I believe this is common sense. In reality, the majority of those 9 countries did not implement this vandalism and continue to write the way it should be. There is always the discourse about Brazil. Brazil, because the changes that were implemented were mostly in accordance to what the language is in Brazil, Brazil implemented it, but basically there was very little change they had to do. And that's why. So, no one here is against Brazil. I, for one, am not against Brazil. Brazil, quite frankly, they just did whatever. But it's Portugal. It's the Portuguese government that is to blame for this. And it should have been the Portuguese government that should have never signed something like this. And it should have never done this to the Portuguese language. I'm not here to bash any other governments, any other countries, because they defend their own countries. It's the Portuguese government, it's the Portuguese president, it's the Portuguese prime minister that should have been the duty of defending this country and his language, his culture, and his people, which they haven't done for any of it. So, this is what has been done. It continues to so as I said, the 9 countries did not do that because obviously it's ridiculous. And then in Portugal, this is what is happening. Kids are being robbed of proper learning by incompetent governments and incompetent teachers that follow this criminal act against their language without questioning or having a word about it. This is what is happening, and ridiculous. It's ridiculous. If you speak Portuguese and you see the way people write Portuguese these days, they don't even know what they're writing. They don't know. They don't write with the orthographic agreement because they don't understand it. They don't write proper Portuguese because they think they're writing with the orthographic agreement. And what the result is something that it's nothing. It's nothing. It's not in one side or the other. It's just an amalgamation of errors. And the kids are learning this at school, this is what is even worse. It's that kids are learning this at school. This is not Portugal. This is not the Portuguese language. Every single country has the right of its language and culture. Why can't Portugal have the same? It's just a simple question. We have tried to contact the Portuguese president and were ignored. Successive governments rather, have been contacted and have ignored the people that are showing them. And this is not just the average Joe in Portugal. These are lawyers, doctors. These are linguists, people that really know what they're talking about. And we all have been ignored. Why? These corrupt politicians have asked the British, the Americans, the South Africans, the Australians, the New Zealanders, if they feel they need to unify the English language. Because if they did, they would laugh in their faces. That's for sure. I had an instance of speaking with people from the United States and telling them what is happening, and they laughed in my face. They said, wow, that is ridiculous. Because nobody would think King Charles would ever speak American English. The same way, nobody would think that we would force Donald Trump to speak the English of the king. Because it doesn't make sense. The language evolved differently in both countries, and everyone in the English-speaking world accepts that. Everyone is happy. We all understand each other, and there's no issues with the English language whatsoever, because there is mutual respect. And here, it's not a question of mutual respect between the Portuguese-speaking countries. It's a question of respect from the Portuguese government to its language, to its people, to its culture, and to its country. That's what the problem is. Well, I did, and as I said, I've spoken to people even from the UK. I have friends in the UK that also think that this is ridiculous and makes no sense. Because it is ridiculous. It is cultural and linguistical vandalism. That's what this is. And we need to stop it. And we need to stop it now. So if you see posts about the Portuguese language being celebrated on the 5th of May, don't be fooled. It's not on the 5th of May. It's on the 10th of June. That's the real day of the Portuguese language. I'm gonna leave the link below to one blog that is created by one of the persons that he's been working hard in order to defend the language, and she's been helping us, signing petitions, sending the letters, doing everything, which is o lugar da língua portuguesa, the place of the Portuguese language. It is in Portuguese, obviously, and she has now changed the her blog to another platform because, again, she was censored in the previous platform. The Portuguese government does not want people to talk about this. They want to continue their path of vandalism, their path of destruction. And therefore, if you have a blog or if you have something that goes against all of this, they obviously gonna censor it and they're gonna delete it. So that's what happened. So she created it in another platform, and please have a look, leave a comment if you speak Portuguese, if you can understand what she writes. It's really interesting articles that you can read because it explains exactly why we are against it. This is not just something that we are against because we are against change or because we don't want change or this or that. We are against it because, quite frankly, it's unconstitutional, and lawmakers have already said that. It's vandalism, it's wrong, doesn't make sense, and doesn't agree with the discourse of diversity and inclusion and everything that we have today. So if we talk about inclusion, if we talk about diversity, why the Portuguese speaking countries don't have the right of having that diversity, namely Portugal? I would like one of the Portuguese politicians to answer me this question, but quite frankly, I'm not holding my hopes on that. And that's why today I decided to bring this topic, because it is something that is very important to me. And since the day was recently celebrated, I wanted to clarify this. Please do not celebrate the Portuguese language on the 5th of May, because it is not the Portuguese language day. It is on the 10th of June. So for today, I hope you liked this video today. I hope it really explain if you are not a Portuguese speaking person and you see all these posts, because they've been widespread. For example, in Australia, even SBS was conned into putting some post about this. And obviously is wrong. It doesn't represent the Portuguese language at all. The Portuguese language is celebrated on the 10th of June. And obviously this is something that it is important to clarify, and it's important to show people the reason why we are fighting this. We are not just fighting this because, okay, just let's go and have some fights, or because we don't want change, or because we are against the other Portuguese speaking countries. No, it's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. The discourse that we are being against other countries, namely Brazil, it's actually the opposite. And so much so that we have Brazilians, lots of them, that see our ridiculous disease, and they see the value that all these variants had to the language. It brings a bit of each one of the cultures into the language, and it just gives it more. It's richer. It's way more interesting because it's got all these nuances, all these cultural traces that each and every country brings to the language. But of course, Brazil has its culture, Portugal has its culture, Mozambique has its culture, Angola has its culture, every country has its culture. So therefore, the language is represented and represents each one of those cultures and should be preserved. Should be preserved. We don't unify languages. We don't. So much so that no one else thinks about that. And if you talk to any other speaker of any other language that happens to have variants, and you tell them something like this, they laugh. I know because it happened to me. I spoke with British people, American people, Australian people. They all laugh because it's ridiculous. Does not make sense. They cannot understand something as silly as unifying a language. Doesn't make sense. And in a world where we talk about inclusion, we talk about diversity, we talk about accepting everyone, why isn't the Portuguese and the Portuguese language accepted? Anyway, I hope you liked it. And if you have any suggestion of any other topic that you would like me to discuss, please leave a comment below. And of course, if you have any questions about this topic or any other topic, again, leave a comment below. I'll be very, very happy to accommodate that. Also, if you have any experience, what do you think? What do you think? Are you a Portuguese speaker? What do you think of this? Are you a teacher in Portugal? Let me tell you a reality, because obviously I don't think the teachers are doing a very good job, because they should be the first ones to say, no, we are not going to do this. I, for one, if I was in a school in Portugal and I was teaching Portuguese, I would vehemently refuse to vandalize the language the way it's been vandalized. And quite frankly, if the revolt was that big and if all the teachers got together and said, no, we're not going to do it, the government wouldn't be able to do anything against them. Let's face it. But that would be for another story. So leave me a comment below, and put a like on the video and subscribe to the channel with a little click on the bell so you get a notification of a new insider every week. Before I go, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one. Bye.